We come to poetry tonight in our country is in just a horror show of racism and violence and aggressive behavior. So some of these poems tonight, I hope will speak to some of that. Some of them, I hope can offer some kind of hope or help. But I want to specifically say, I want to dedicate this reading tonight to my friend Jimmy Friday. Jimmy, I knew at Notre Dame, and he is now a husband and a father raising two African-American boys in Houston, Texas. And he's a real thinker and really a wise person. He's helped me understand some of the things that are happening. So for Jimmy and Alicia and their two little ones. And let me start with a new-ish poem. It's in a few parts called Flight. And this is a praise song for Harriet Tubman. 1. You prepare using all the stubborn ways you know. Since you cannot carry much, your choices taste thin. You keep your plan at the back of your throat. It is wet and dangerous there. Your silence smells like fresh cut wood, the not telling anyone who is not coming, who does not pulse with you and your unseen fury at this noose of land they call their country. 2. You confide in the few and then you hold your breath for the rest of the days. Who can trust when lies live just beneath the skin of anyone's face? 3. Finally, the dusk opens its eyes on your leaving. You want to seize every brittle second of this night to gain a step, a breath. You've come to the end of praying. Tonight, you become the prayer. 4. Trying to sleep in the light of day is a lie. You close your eyes and watch for shadows arriving on horseback, a gunshot bruising the air, a dog's dripping tongue. 5. You feel your way in the language of candles in an attic window, a diamond-patterned quilt hanging from a clothesline, a wheelbarrow filled with apples under the shine of stars, a constellation that quenches nothing yet. 6. Some nights running is religion. A root cellar becomes a welcome sanctuary until you hear the boots of your country stalking the kitchen floor above you. This world is rabid in its fury. This country lunges at you with white teeth. Then it lunges again. 7. The darkness means run. You wild your legs, but do not listen to them. They lie too. Some nights they yearn for capture. 8. Some nights you live every dark minute in water, a murky black world that blinds you to its terrors, snakes with venom that will bury you in mud, branches that wait to lacerate your thigh. You offer a prayer to the swamp you swim. You hold your arms out of the water, hoping to save at least some part of you. 9. This wet, panting world was never your choice. 10. Your chest heaves with the weight of possible. Your heart claps under your skin in a furious ovation. Your legs pound beneath you so that your feet can trample the dirt of this country, a land, a price, a lie you would give anything to crush. And this single poem kind of out by itself, but it says something about the first poem. In all my education, no teacher or professor ever spoke the name Harriet Tubman. Maybe they feared the sounds would crackle in the complacent air, would charge the oxygen in the classroom, singeing the edges of history books, or maybe her lawlessness angered them, the anarchy of her hands. Perhaps her inability to read upset their measures of strength or competence. Or it might be that her feminine determination, her constant return, her risks, her breath, always under her own control, was more than they thought we students could imagine. I mean, how could it be that this woman of seizures, this revolutionary in rags, could see so clearly into the bones of America. I want to move to another series of poems on about immigration. Saint Toribio Gonzalez was a Mexican priest who only lived to be 27 years old and was killed by soldiers in Mexico in 1928. But he's become a kind of patron saint of immigrants crossing the southern border. And they often will pin holy cards with his image inside their clothing. Well, the poems tell some of those stories. So there's a couple of these I want to read. Santo Toribio, Sweatshirt. Your wrinkled image secured inside his sweatshirt, safety pinned on four sides so he feels you press his own sweating skin. You, a serious saint, lips that say prayers, eyes that mean martyrdom. Your stories are legend among the near dead, that they dreamed of you and woke to water, that they prayed to you and found apples in the desert, that they gazed at your image and heard your warning to go back, later to learn there was more desert than they could breathe. Your hands anointed for wandering souls, your hands tilting the chalice to the lips of a starving faith. Santo Toribio Water Litany. For tongues gone gray as greed, pray for us. For mothers dropping the last wet diamonds onto lips of ash, pray for us. For throats where even the blood has dried, pray for us. For amber eyes that see a shimmering, which is a whole country laughing, pray for us. For the ache that is an underground river, pray for us. For the oasis dream that comes too easily to the scared, pray for us, who have no country, no air, only a river, a fence, and you. St. Toribio Chapel. The desert wind whispers through ocotillo branches, shredded fingers pleading to a silent sky. They say when we are close to death, we will see you, hear you, words of comfort, maybe a jar of water, maybe your hand will point to the true north. We stopped at your chapel in Jalisco, but felt no comfort there. We had too many miles ahead of us, too many countries. We saw your image in the stained glass window holding a canteen and a cup. But we need the miracle, not the mirage. And the last in this series is St. Toribio Altar. You also died in the middle of the night. Soldiers woke you with cursing guns. Your sister saw you shot. The floor became an altar. You lived in a country where saints were illegal, where breaking bread sounded like gunfire. Although you never heard the desert did not leave your country, we carry you, sewn inside our coats, our paper saint, the martyr we hope will save us when we lie torn beneath the cactus on an altar of sand. I wrote some years ago, I wrote several poems about Emmett Till, Mamie Till, and in exploring their stories and the death of Emmett Till, I discovered someone named Willie Lewis. He was a 18-year-old kid in Money, Mississippi, and one day was walking down a dirt road. Pickup truck flew past him with a couple of black men in the back and somebody covered in tarp, and two white men in the cab of the truck driving. And as he went on, he saw a barn and the same truck parked outside the barn, and he heard horrible screaming, someone being tortured. And pretty soon one of the white men came down to the road where he was and said to him, you didn't hear anything, did you? And he said, no, sir, and kept walking. And would later then do what at the time, of course, was unthinkable in 1955 Mississippi, but he testified against the two men who killed Emmett Till in court. So this is when your word is a match for Willie Lewis. He was born in 1937 and he died in 2013. When you walk past Klansmen smiling at you on your way into the courthouse, wondering how you will ever live here after this airless day. When you tell the story of a pickup truck, a barn, a boy, a threat. When you point at two men in the courtroom and everyone gasps at what they have never seen before, but know is true. When your word is a match head hissing into flame, testifying aloud but blown out as soon as you speak. When all the air in the courtroom shakes its white head. When the smiling men brag about killing the boy in the barn, when they joke about a river, about what cannot float. When you flee to your mother's city to breathe air that isn't a gasp. When you hide the name your parents gave you for fear the men from that barn will come smiling for you too. When you speak to your wife years later after a lifetime of breathing beside her. When this air thick as lead presses your chest to breaking. When the match's flame consumes all the air, revealing a coffin, a boy, a mother, and you burning still. I want to read one more, I think, kind of difficult one. I am a deep believer in the elegy, this one of the oldest forms of poems that we've ever written, probably the ode and the elegy, first scratched onto cave walls or on the side of a canoe or something. I think that I'd like to think that elegies have a kind of resurrection power. They don't bring someone back to life in a literal sense, of course, but that doesn't mean there aren't other ways to be brought back to life. So this is an elegy for Virgil Ware, titled Requiem for Virgil Ware. Virgil Ware was a 13-year-old boy who was killed the afternoon of September 15th, 1963, just hours after the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama. Two Black boys were killed in Birmingham the same day, and often they're almost lost to history. So, Requiem for Virgil Ware. 1. The handlebars of a boy's bicycle can be a crucifixion if the year is America. If it's your brother's bicycle and you are laughing like sunshine on the Docena-Sandusky Road just outside Birmingham, Alabama, when you're riding on the handlebars and your brother James pedals perfectly, relying on your laughter to tell him when to avoid a pothole, a fallen branch, a red motorcycle he will not see. The pine and mimosa trees smile down at you while you dream about the bike you will make your own from an uncle's scrapyard. You'll try to find it there today, piece it together, paint it right, polish its rims. You'll finally be able to share a paper route with both your older brothers, and the Ware boys will buy a car, take girls on dates, go who knows where. Your eyes are oceans today. You hum as gravel pops under the bike tires. You smile loud as the wind singing past your ears. That wind, the only breath you need on this Sunday afternoon. 2. Larry Joe Sims was a 16-year-old boy you did not know. He had just bought a small Confederate flag at a rally. There had been a bomb at a church that morning. He knew there was a cross atop that church. He heard some Negro boys were throwing rocks. His friend Michael drove a motorcycle red as Alabama air. Larry clung to the back. Michael boasted about a pearl-handled revolver. Larry hadn't believed him. Michael handed it to Larry as they sped along the Docena-Sandusky Road. Larry held the revolver reverently. He'd fired a gun before. His eyes were fine, his vision clear. He could see the road before them. 3. There is nothing so beautiful as a boy's sweat. When you are 13 years old and you can't control your smile, when you dream of your own bike, when you see it in your mind and imagine its candy apple red or forest green frame, you are not sure which. That joy paints the world. That joy sweats. Your older brother James pedals fierce. His warm breath brushes your neck. You love your brother's breath. You know its smell, its taste. You hope your brother will breathe forever. 4. You didn't know a brick church shivered this morning. You didn't know the face of Christ shattered out of its famous stained glass window. You didn't know the basement filled with bricks falling from the sanctuary above it. You didn't know that 4 girls were carried out. You never knew silence so hot. But even if you'd known, you might have pushed the thought aside. The rising joy of your own bike would smile everything else away. Its joy is that bright. Its sweat is that perfect. 5. The red paint on Michael's motorcycle is almost as dark as the red on Larry's small Confederate flag snapping in the Sabbath wind. It makes him believe something he cannot name. He leans into his friend's back and holds the revolver in his left hand. He thinks about the new school year at Phillips High School. He is an Eagle Scout. He sometimes prays to the one who died on a cross. He is an American. He knows his family thinks some civil rights are a good idea, but it will still be funny to scare these 2 black boys on a bike. He'll laugh when their eyes open with fear seeing the gun. He expects them to throw rocks, but they don't. He plans to fire the gun at the ground and then laugh hard as sunshine. He knows he shouldn't close his eyes when firing a gun, but he does anyway. He does not see the bullets hit Virgil's chest and cheek. He does not hear Virgil's breath pull in fast. He laughs down the road on the back of Michael's motorcycle. He does not see them pull over and fall because he closed his eyes. 6. You were smart and skinny. You had faith that your brother would keep the bike up. You knew you could wrap your arms around the handlebars and not fall. You believed in balance. Your toes on the front wheel's bolts, you would not fall. You played tight end in football. You knew how to extend your arms. You knew how to rise. 7. Until this afternoon turned dark. Until you heard laughter like mocking soldiers, until you lay on your back beside the road, James above you begging you to stop trembling, until air became hard in your throat, until the pines loomed over you, piercing the red Alabama sky like nails, until you never saw your brother James so scared, until you needed your brother's breath for yourself now, until you wanted these crucified seconds, his face, his sweat, his breath to last forever. For Virgil Ware. A couple of newish poems. I don't know if you've had a chance to see this. Kehinde Wiley is a sculptor who has created this amazing sculpture called Rumors of War. And if you were to look at it from 25 yards away, you would think it's a Confederate general on a horse that's kind of rearing up, and it's up on a huge pedestal, and it looks just like that. Until you get closer and realize that the figure on the horse's back is a young teenage black boy, basketball shoes, torn jeans, hair pulled up tied on top. And it's now outside of a museum in Richmond, Virginia. Just where I learned today that they have decided to take the statue of Robert E. Lee out of the city. So this is called On Kehinde Wiley's statue, Rumors of War. And this, I'm going to read a couple of poems about artwork. So this is the first of those. And this is, so On Kehinde Wiley's statue, Rumors of War, for Trayvon Martin, 1995, 2012. Trayvon Martin could have used that war horse, powerful as a truck, graceful too. The horse might have scared him at first, but I bet once he was on it, squeezing its reins, pressing his legs into its heaving sides, he would savor its power. I bet it would taste sweet to him. On a Florida night when America was being its worst self, Trayvon could have ridden that horse hard. Trayvon could have shown America his boyhood grin, his baptized skin, his hoodie blown back, letting the wind gallop past his ears. Trayvon and that warhorse could have been one. The horse's mane whipping his cheeks, the horse's hooves hammering the damp soil like 1,000 fists, like an agony of hands, like a blind man's bullet. Washington, D.C. is, I guess, becoming or has become a city of great murals. And one painter, Anayakan Udofia, is a painter whose work is all over the city. And he has a kind of a famous mural of Marvin Gaye here. And so this is on Anayakan Udofia's Marvin Gaye mural. It's on 7th and S Streets in Northwest DC. And the poem just references Marvin Gaye's life and talks about a little bit about DC. When you lived in Simple City, hollering distance from the capital of the free world, you knew something was not right. You wondered what was going on in the mind of a father who would beat you for any little thing. You felt the love of your mother, but it grew you, but it could not protect you. You learned to use your voice as a bullet, a lament for the world you saw on South Capitol Street and in Vietnam and in the searing searchlight from every police car. You knew dying like some boys know basketball. You felt an ache for the world that for most of us is a note we will never sing. In my last book, Ache, there's a series of poems in the voice of Nelson Mandela, and I'd like to just finish with a couple of these. Nelson Mandela speaks to Mamie Till. On some August nights, I think every mother is a martyr. I know you would resist that thought. It was your son, you would say, not you. And you would be right, and you would be wrong. Mothers loved sons in 1955, especially when the sons slept hundreds of miles away. I was banned that year. It was the beginning of living in rocks, behind rocks. By the end, I knew about walls. You knew walls too, wooden walls of barns where screams could not be seen, transparent walls of coffins, letting a country see what it had to save. Nelson Mandela speaks to Tupac Shakur. Some say we have nothing in common, but we were both born into revolution and lived. We sang the same century, though it rarely sang to us. We read the bad news of ghettos and tried to write a gospel they could believe. You loved your mother like a country. I loved my country like the mother she was not. In a city of light, you were killed too soon. In a country at dawn, I keep being born. And let me finish with Nelson Mandela speaks to Trayvon Martin. I walk down Fox Street in Johannesburg at dawn. A light rain darkens my shoes. They scrape against the small stones. I'm standing in the doorway when I see you across the street, on the corner, looking at me. You wear no hood today. You smile and walk toward me. I smile and wait for you. The day begins here. Coffee and tea stands push back their canvas covers. A whistle sings from the train station. Your arms swing at your side like only a teenage boy's arms can swing. You look like you might open your mouth to sing. There is no SUV in sight. I'm not sure how to greet you, so I look at your wet grass-stained shoes, then back at your 17-year-old face. I say, come in. Get out of the rain. Thank you.